So it's really about transforming your business. And I'm going to start off with something that's not from me, not quite the contrary. This is from a company called McKinsey, and I'm going to play this video, and it kind of sets the scene of what we're trying to achieve in this session.
Digitization hasn't progressed as far as you might think, and it still has a long way to run. But for the first time, we can look at the path it's taken so far and try to predict its course. On average, industries are less than 40% digitized. And so far, products, services, marketing, and distribution are the most digitized dimensions across industries. Supply chains lag behind, but when they go, the impact on performance is often more dramatic and disruptive than the other flavors of disruption. Companies are currently focusing more on go-to-market activities than supply chain, or even products or service plays, potentially putting themselves at risk of missing critical changes to their business. What have we learned about what makes a digital winner? Both first movers and fast followers have a significant advantage, our research shows. We found that successful companies examined all areas of their business model, looking for vulnerabilities and opportunities, not just one. And when they found opportunities, they moved boldly, linking their digital strategies with their corporate strategies, out-investing their peers while making substantial changes to their business portfolio. They also ensured their leadership and culture were aligned to help drive the change and rewired their organizations to be agile enough to execute the strategy at the pace of digital. One thing is definite: no one wins by standing still.
So when you look at this video, I have to ask this question. When you look at your business, and I'm not talking about presses, if you look at your entire business, how you deal with your customers, how you're organized internally, how how everything is transparent or not, where do you rate your business? And it's really a question to take home, because whatever the number, and whatever the goal you want to go to, it is not going to be, I'm going to buy another product and it'll sort itself out. It's just not like that. And certainly when you look at the showcase downstairs, you see fantastic examples of very, very, fantastic creativity combined with fantastic technology. Absolutely. And people want to do more of that, and people want to have a shelf impact, certainly in the labels and packaging environment. And very often, the hurdle for doing more of that quicker, with more margin, is actually anything that comes before the digital press. So maybe a question, who of you is in the labels and packaging environment? Can I see some hands? A couple, okay, most, after a while. So to come back to the McKinsey study of 2017, it's 2 years ago, and yes, a lot changes in 2 years. But if you look at the least digitized of all industries, is the consumer packaged goods. That's the wide common denominator, and it includes the supply chain for packaging and labels. In other words, although certainly in the label market, digital printing is the best, fastest growing, leading printing technology today, anything that comes before and possibly after isn't anywhere near digitized than those presses. And God knows what's going to come next year, right? When there's Drupa and there's more things coming, and certainly machines typically don't get any slower. So what an effect does that have, again, on the steps before you get to the press? So in labels and packaging, there are 3 reasons, 3 numbers, why you should look at optimizing what comes before the press. And one is 198. Any idea what that might mean? It's the average amount of days that it takes for a label change to make it to the supermarket. That is all the way from brand, because they're involved, to possibly pre-media, converter, and then on to the rest. 30 days is the amount of days that the chief marketing officer at brands believe that it takes them. And 1 is One day is what the consumer thinks it takes to make change to a label. How difficult can it be, right? Control P or Apple P. Print a label. Ask your kids, ask them how long it takes to change a label. We know that the reality is a lot more complex than that. And so that's why this model was put together with a whole group of people, and it's not just ESKO people, to try and guide the supply chain onto the digital transformation journey. Again, it's not an overnight thing, and it's certainly not a black and white thing, and it's not mathematical science either. I call it marketing science, if that means something to you. So, but it is for sure that we're trying to give you a model that you understand much better where you find yourself on that journey. And of course you have to define, what exactly are you talking about. But by and large at the top level, you have these 5 buckets. And just to give you can read it for yourselves, just to give you some indications, more or less what it means to be reactive, organized, digitized, connected, and intelligent. But then, of course, the question is asked very quickly, yeah, but what do you mean? Like, am I, as a company, organized? No, you're never, ever just in one of these buckets. So you need to then go drill deeper into a couple of things. And there are 2 main areas that you need to drill into. And the first area is what I call the culture. And that was also mentioned in that video. What is the culture towards the company, towards the people that work in the company? How do you hire people when you need to hire people? And there's a couple of topics here where, on the leadership, the style itself, I come from the times where the trade shops were like everywhere, and these sweatshops where people were afraid to walk in the morning just in case they made a mistake last night and it was picked up somewhere at the end of the film drawer. Well, these companies still exist. All the way to what is your attitude to business growth, quality, timelines, timeliness, commitment to customers, environmental sustainability, more and more a topic as well, and equipment effectiveness, as in, are you making the most out of your machine park that you have in your company? And then for every single stage of the 5, you have some definition here, right? And certainly when you go more onto the digitized and the automated step, you will find that most of the companies that are in this place actually on a leadership level will find themselves quite advanced, because this is where you learn, this is where you do, so you try and get new ideas and try and understand what you could be doing more with the things that you have, or how you could get into different segments by talking to peers and by learning from different sessions. But so once you have this in place, so if you find yourself recognizing what is here in the connected and even in the intelligent stage, then certainly you're in a good spot from a mental perspective. And you're ready to take the next step, and you're ready to further grow your company. And that's a great thing to do, because if you don't have that, all the rest becomes an amazing challenge. An amazing challenge. The other big line, if you like, so you have the cultural line, and then you have the line of, right, now let's go into the deep end. What is your process? What does your process look like? All the way from the very first moment you talk to your customer, all the way to delivering the goods back to your customer. And then you kind of do I don't know if some of you are familiar with value stream mapping, which is I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But that's really analyzing the process, going with the people that do the work every single day, understanding what tools do they use, what are their main issues, why are they waiting for things, how long does it take to process whatever it is they need to do, and start mapping that out. And then I can warmly recommend it to all of you. I mean, this is not something we invented at ESKO. We have tools that help in a lot of areas, but there is a lot of people who can help you with value stream mapping. And I guarantee you, as much as you might be in charge of the business, you will uncover things that you did not know prior to engaging in a value stream map. And when you do that, so then we can apply the same logic of reactive, automated, connected, intelligent we can apply the same logic to each and every step of these. And of course, customer communication isn't a one thing. Artwork preparation isn't one task. There are multiple tasks. But we're bundling it together for simplicity. And it's really the intention that when people find themselves somewhere, then you have an interesting conversation. All right, okay, so I'm kind of in a framework from not so good to extremely good. I'm here, or I'm partially there, and I'm partially there, and I'm partially there. And you get a really interesting conversation. Now, what is the logical next step for your company to do? So, if we go into customer communication, I would say this is one of the areas that is probably most ignored or neglected, maybe not ignored, but neglected when it comes to the digital transformation. And particularly when digital presses are involved, very often you see the presses either being not used to 100% capacity, and if you then start drilling into that, it used to be pre-press being a bit bottleneck, and a lot of people have invested in automation, and that definitely helps. However, if the jobs don't even make it to the pre-press in time, then, you might as well not have the automation. So, and we see that very often. I was yesterday at a customer who said, okay, I have now hired 2 more CSRs. And that's, of course, the alternative, right? Either you digitize or you throw manpower at it. But throwing manpower at it might help from a processing volume perspective, but doesn't necessarily help with regards to getting on the same page with everyone, making your whole business more transparent so that you know exactly what is where and who's been dealing with what for how long. So there you have situations where people basically work with email to talk to customers. Probably everybody is still somehow using email. But the amount of emails going back and forth for more and more jobs per day, shorter run lengths, more customers. And I talked about yesterday with the same customer. So like, I cannot spend as much time with every customer. We now have the big guys, and they're like 80% of my volume. And then we have the mid tier, which, we'd like to spend some more time with these because maybe they come bigger customers. And then we have the guys, the microbreweries, even the guys that order once in the blue moon, right? They need to go web to print. I don't want to talk to them unless there is a reason for me why I believe they're going to give me more business. So, but right now, the majority of people are just working with emails. And you can read this for yourself. I'm not going to, I guess, these presentations are typically distributed afterwards, so I expect that you'll get them. So this is what we see. Emails going back and forth, and then what did I tell this guy? Okay, I need to retrieve the emails. Did the recipient even read the email? Okay, what was the email about? Or specifications were not right, or the quality of the, or I'm missing some specification, or the file that they sent over wasn't correct. It was RGB, or there were some images missing, or there were some fonts missing. Whatever it is, there is a ton of emails being sent around all the time. And for that, there are simple solutions out there. We have one of them, but there's more of them. And there are simple solutions out there that centralize everything that you do, that everybody does. So if you have different people inputting information about specifications, make sure that whatever they input is input into a centralized project that is actually centralizing the data, but also taking the project management to a digital level. In other words, digitize the processes that when a project is started, this comes first, then if it's this kind of customer, then that needs to happen. All these conditional things that we all have in our heads is something that you can easily digitize. And so make sure that all the players, and I've put structural designers, in labels it might not be relevant or in commercial print, pre-press managers, sales representatives, customer representatives, the customer themselves, the owner of the place, to understand what sits where, who's done what, and there is a digital audit trail of that process. The amount of time, and as jobs go up, a number of customers go up, the amount of time that people spend in project management is humongous. And needless to say that the more jobs you need to try and juggle and keep, the more balls you need to keep in the air, the more likely it is that you will be making mistakes. So engaging with your customer is not just about project management, so digitizing all the information, so it's you know where everything is, and your customer gets access to that information, but also like engaging in something that they recognize. And this is not Facebook. This is a packaging management system, but it looks like Facebook because that's what everybody knows, and everybody knows how to deal with it. Except this is particularly made for packaging. So at the end of the day, if you have thousands of customers, you don't want to train those customers. Nobody does. So you need to make sure it is intuitive. The best way to make it intuitive is to make sure it resembles to a high level, what people are used to. And on another level, of course, when it comes to on-time delivery, one of the things that was said yesterday to the customer was, our differentiator is customer intimacy. We guarantee the on-time delivery. Right, okay, good, cool, I think that's really cool. But how can you guarantee the on-time delivery if you don't exactly know what is supposed to be delivered by when in order to meet those deadlines? And sometimes it's an internal reason why things go off the rails. Sometimes it's the very customer that's going off the rails by not approving on time. Well, make sure that every step, miles before the press, is digitized so that if you meet one of the intermediate deadlines, then the flags go up, because if you don't meet this deadline, this intermediate step, why would you think you're going to meet the deadline when you're finally delivering? And even if you do, it probably comes at a cost because you have to reschedule presses and all the rest of it. Probably not something I need to explain to you. And then by having these digitized processes in place, you automatically generate insights into your business. Right, okay, so things go off the rails. Where does it go off the rail? Is it the approval cycle? Is it getting the specifications together? Is it, people not approving on time? Where is it? All the information that by digitizing a process, which is all in the individual heads of the people that work on a daily basis, if you put that in a system, you automatically go into an intelligent level, because now you get the information that you need in order to say, right, my next step is to tackle that. If it's the approvals, okay, why the approval? What is the reason why people reject a certain job? Okay, we have that information. Now we can go drill, and now we can go and improve. So that's customer communication. But of course, it's communication. There's no reason that what I just said is not applicable to internal communication. It is. It is absolutely both internal and with your customers. Actually, typically, people tend to streamline the processes internally, take the brick walls down between departments, and only then they start reaching out to their customers. Sometimes that goes the other way around, and they digitize the process flow to their customers, and they forget to do it internally. And the net result is that they get an overflow of jobs which they cannot handle. I've spoken to a customer in the US, who remain nameless, who has 2 web-to-print systems and a couple of digital presses. He uses none of the web-to-print systems. Why not? Because there is no connectivity between his web-to-print system and his MIS system. There is no connectivity between his web-to-print system and his workflow automation system, which he does have. But people tend to think, okay, I need to do this because that's the next thing. People want to upload their own jobs and maybe business to consumer. And it's all true. I'm not denying that. It's just that they're skipping a few critical steps in order to build the foundation of doing that very well. Because the last thing you want is that somebody uploads something and expects to see things and immediately, and in the back end, somebody's catching it and doing something. That doesn't quite work. So in an internal communication, I'm going to focus on the first one is the MIS. Oops. Yeah, the first one is the MIS, and this has got a little bit more animation than I was hoping for. If you have an order, duplication of data is the mother of all evil, because again, it's the same logic. You have many, many more jobs, many, many more duplications. Chances that somebody makes a mistake that at some point is going to be quite costly to you is real. And it's extra time and work. In this day and age, connecting your MIS system to your workflow automation system is a no-brainer. It's an industrialized process. The times of smoke and mirrors is gone. the time in 2000, I guess, when first everybody talked about JDF, and you had to talk JDF, and then when you asked them, what do you want to do with JDF, and then they said, well, I don't really know. Today, all these standards are so well advanced that it's very easy to tell you up front, look, we're going to come in, and in 5 days we'll do exactly that. And at the end of that process, you will be able to do this, and that. And there is no smoke and mirrors, and there is no custom coding involved anymore. So the guarantee is there that when we upgrade, or when the MIS system upgrade, it will not break. And I think that's the fundamental difference with before. People stayed away from having this connectivity between MIS and pre-press automation or customer processes automation because they were afraid that things would break. It would cost them a massive amount of money to have it implemented because it was all service-driven. Now it's an industrialized process. It's pure software, which is sustainable. The other internal communication is of a totally different nature. And it's just a couple of examples on what you can do already. If you're in a situation that you work for a group, for instance, where there is multiple sites, in this day and age, it's very simple to connect the different sites together using a cloud infrastructure to move jobs from site A to site B, check it in, check it out, make sure that there is a clear path of one job moving to another site. And it's that cloud infrastructure that we will see further developing in the coming months and I'd say next year at Drupa, and you'll see a lot more cloud deployed systems. That again makes it easier to work in a global environment, more flexible. At the same time, it will much reduce your IT hassles because it's all Amazon based. It's all SLA is extremely high. There are the necessary guarantees. And the times that people didn't trust the cloud are over, I guess. If I tell you that some of the pharmaceutical companies today are moving their stuff to the cloud, that means the guarantees are really, really, really there for them to feel comfortable in that and compliant in that environment. Right. And then I come to the core of pre-press, of the one-up preparation, if you like. So here there is a very clear path. And we see still today people working with off-the-shelf, and I'm now talking packaging and labels. We see them work with off-the-shelf Adobe applications like InDesign, mostly Photoshop and Illustrator. But there it's very simple to actually move up on the ladder by selecting a couple of industry-specific plugins for Illustrator and Photoshop to make it much more suited for packaging and label work. Illustrator at the end of the day is a design tool, and Adobe positions it that way. They have no intention to develop tools that are very specific for the packaging and label market. Obviously, companies like ourselves, we have been there for many, many years, and we're working on a daily basis with Adobe to make sure that that platform is equally a design platform as a packaging platform. So there you have, within an editor, you have plugins in Illustrator. You also have, industry high-level editors, if you like, PDF editors, such as ArtPro Plus. And already here you can start advancing. So either do everything manually in an editor. That editor is fast, great, but you still need a person. And that person is typically doing a number of routine tasks that he or she needs to do for every single job. Step number one is to actually take these jobs, and as you see in the picture here, and actually put them in the job as a list of things that you want to automate one after the other. So once you do that, you move a step into the digital transformation. It's still within the editor, but the different steps that the people need to take interactively are now automated, but they're still in the editor. The next thing you do is you offload those jobs to a workflow server. So you really keep the editors just for the high-end editing, for the exception handling, if you like, and all the rest is dealt with by a workflow automation. And then last but not least, so actually that was what I wanted to say. So you have offload the editor, offload the tasks to a workflow server. Also here, those of you that do not yet have a workflow automation server for packaging and labels, at a time where we have customers that still haven't automated, and they have 3 Indigo presses. Now, I hate to think the amount of jobs that these 3 indigo presses can swallow on a daily basis. And there is literally 2 possibilities. Either you automate, or once again, you throw headcount at it. Both work. One is potentially more sustainable than the other. So here already within the editor, if people are afraid of workflow, of automating things, they don't trust it, which is still a factor, you can do it within the editor, and so it's happening in front of you. It's not done manually anymore, it's done in front of you. There's no scripting required. The editor does what he or she normally does and turns that into an automated task inside the editor. But also on the workflow on the workflow side, we hear a lot of times where people say, like, we don't have workflow experts. We're printers. We don't. If we could avoid pre-press, we would, because we're printing, and that's clear. But in the meantime, there are so easy to install and deploy workflows there that are built on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of installations for labels, for folding carton, for corrugator, for flexibles, that it becomes easy to deploy them. And that gets you well on the way to having a big step forward in the digital transformation journey. It doesn't do everything, but again, in 5 days, because these workflows are known and proven and sustainable, you're on the road. And because they are industry standard proven workflows, you know in advance, what am I going to get after the 5 days? Which has historically been an issue, like, 5 days, but then I need another 5 and another 5, and and then my guy leaves, and then I'm stuffed because I don't know how we put these workflows together. That's kind of part of the past. However, for those people that do find themselves making a difference in workflow automation, they can of course still make bespoke and advanced workflow if they wish to do so. However, the trend is more and more to start with an industry standard 5-day automation practice to get started. And an interesting one here that I would like to mention is, people start to think, workflow automation in pre-press, that means I want to do pre-flight, I want to do trapping maybe for a conventional press, I want to make a report, I want to do step and repeat. Yeah, all true. But out of the workflow servers that we have installed in the field, those that allow us to, we capture the usage of what do they do with that system, and then we find that the top 3 tasks are the copy and move file task, the select file, and the delete file. What has that got to do with pre-press, commercial print or packaging? Nothing. It's management. It's keeping the system clean. It's being disciplined, which is hard to ask from people sometimes, especially on a Monday morning. So you'd be surprised how deeply ingrained such a system can be and what an impact it can have on your organization in a short period of time. Now, the big question here in this digital journey is, if you look at your capacity, and there's something not going quite right with the formatting here, it's the law of the smallest common denominator, right? So if this is your capacity on printing and finishing on the right, and you have your market potential on the left, then pre-press and admin are typically those areas where people hate to invest because it's not part of printing. My customer, quote unquote, is not going to pay for this. No, that's true. But if your customer is putting you under price pressure, the only thing you want to do is make sure that you can do more with less people in a more sustainable way. And then people tend to think, I'm going to add a web shop, and now we've just made the problem worse. I'm not saying that web shop is not a good idea, quite the contrary. But again, if the middle part is not in order, you get an avalanche of jobs that you will not be able to handle, or you have to hire another army, and in a lot of cases it ends up like the American company, I'm going to hold back in using. So they've invested a substantial amount of money in 2 web-to-print systems, which they wanted to position to different types of people, and they're not using either of them. And of course, this is the picture that we'd like to see. And automation there, like a good MIS system, and good automation and the connectivity between those, which as I said is industrialized, can get you very far very quickly. Another one is, and that's a big pain point, I can't speak for commercial print, but in labels and packaging we hear this all the time. My customer is not approving. My customer is not approving. He's not responding to my emails. I've sent him 3 emails. Now it's late. now I need to change my planning, or I can't even deliver on time. Now he's upset. And I can't tell him that. I tried to tell him, but he doesn't like me telling him that he was late. Again, this is where the digitized processes can help. If you know who the people are that need to approve, you need to either tap into a cloud service which exists, or the approval cycle as part of the packaging management system, to basically invite the right people at the right time and make sure that they do the approval. And if they don't, they get email after email after email, and everything is registered. So at the end of the ride, you can say what happened when, and you can prove, and that's the facts, that it was clear to the process that you need to approve at that point in order to get your goods at that point. And it gets you into a different conversation with the customer as well. So approvals here, again, is on the one hand is process, on the other hand is also like, people like to see what the end product is. 3D technology in this case, has gone a long way as well. It's much easier to see issues in a 3D than on a 2D. If it's a folding carton, is there information on the glue flap, for instance? You will see that in a 3D. On 2D, maybe not. If it's a flexible packaging, is the barcode hidden somewhere in an area where it shouldn't be? You'll see that here. Again, you can make annotations here, and you can reject or approve, but whatever happens by whoever is registered in the system, and an audit trail basically provides all the information at the end of the ride. That information gives you then, in turn, business insight in how to go, where to focus on your next journey of improvement of your business. I'm going to have to speed up a little bit. So sheet layout, again here in folding carton, for instance, one of the big things here is we hear all the time is like the amount of times that people ask for a quote, and the amount of time that we do all the work. We need to hassle the production guys to make estimations, and then we make a quote. And in 60%, 70%, sometimes even 80% of the cases, I don't get the order. There are intelligent ways to understand how should I, that facilitates estimation. It's not necessarily doing the estimation, but it facilitates the estimation, taking into account finishing and everything else. So these are the things that are available. You can do an amazing amount. What you will not be able to do is do it all in one go. Plate making, this is the scoop. I'll skip this, although very important to us as well. But on the press, for instance, here is an interesting one. On the printing floor, how do you know, and I'm now talking specifically on an Indigo, how do you know how many clicks you need to pay for a certain job? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? What happens if you can do the same job and get the right colors with 1 click less? Well, then obviously you pay less, but you also create production capacity, right? That's something that is available. It exists. And gives you a report like this where you clearly say, right, these jobs, great, I can do EPM, or I can do 4 color versus 6. That's a substantial impact. It's a substantial impact. And these tools give you insights. They give you further, rather than saying like, I'm not going to take any risk, an important customer, I'd rather spend the extra click. Fine, no problem. But at the end of the day, the margin is something that for most people is very important as well. And then you have post-finish, post-press, and packing and shipping. I'll skip that for now. I'll come back to my, value stream map. A value stream map goes into the deep end, and it uncovers all the bits, all the tasks. You walk with, it's like a 3-day process. You walk with your people to go through, the process. And you understand the certain methodology where the pain points are. And you understand what tools that they use, and very often it's amazing the amount of different tools that people use in a company. It's MIS, it's some clouds, some OneDrive or whatever it is, SharePoint, Outlook. Sometimes 10 systems is not an exception. And then, and this is the interesting thing, then you come to a situation where for every step you need to do this interesting exercise of all the issues that come up in that process. How often does it come up? And when it comes up, how painful is it? And it can be painful to a person, as a person saying, I hate this. Or it can be painful because it results in rework, or it results in a customer rejection. Okay, these are things. And then you need to put them on this 9 matrix. And the ones that are the top right, are the ones that you need to attack immediately because they happen all the time and they have a serious impact. And that can be anything, right? It can be the very first contact with customers and the way you talk to them or whatever else, right down to it takes me too long to convert a job from this color space to another color space, whatever it is. Now that gives you an insight. Now that then comes to all of that, and I realize I didn't go through all of these slides in detail. We would have been here for a few hours. But it comes down to this. This is the crunch of the whole digital transformation journey and the model. Is we know what people more or less have bought in the past, and you know, we see it in our database. We know what they buy first, what they buy next, etc. And incidentally, this is intentionally a very old indigo. But so we know that. But if you know for every stage of your process where you are, then you can ask yourself the question, now what is the next best thing to do? And this is a real scenario where a customer in certain, or a company in certain areas find themselves on the left, and in other areas they find themselves quite advanced. It doesn't have to be all in the same bucket. You can make a very conscious decision to say, I am going to focus, I'm going to get away from this left bar. That's really, in 2019, that shouldn't be the case. Or I'm going to modernize. Or I'm going to disrupt. I'll take one area and I'll make that a competitive differentiator. You, of course, need to be careful that the other areas that are on the left-hand side are not standing in the way. But now you're making a conscious business decision on the next phase. So, and a product. And this is some of our products, some of you might know them. A product isn't necessarily just for one area. It might be perfectly okay if you look at a packaging management system like our web center. That gets you started something very lean, but with that same thing you can grow into, all the way into intelligence. It's not because one product is a product that you can't start lean. And I think that's one of the biggest issues I find when people say, yeah, but we want that and we want that and we want that. And then you end up with a massive quote which then, is rejected by the board to say, like, we can't pay for this. What's it going to bring me? What's the return on investment? Start lean. And the quote will be lean. What you will get will be in phases. But you do need to make sure that whatever you do as a first step, however small, that there is a very tangible benefit for your business. And I think that's really all I wanted to communicate. Some of these products that you've heard, we've got them downstairs in our little on our little tabletop there. Come and see us. Come and talk to us. We're here for the next 3 days. I hope this has given you some insight. It certainly isn't a sales pitch, but we do come across a lot of companies which, with a small effort, can actually advance themselves very quickly, particularly when digital presses are involved. I think it's critical that you do justice to that investment by digitizing the processes upstream. Thank you very much.